we know him as the All-Father, the king of Asgard, the ruler of the 9 realms, a figure of ultimate power and authority. We see him on his high throne, a wise, majestic god watching over the cosmos. But this image of serene power is a lie. The Odin who sits on that throne is not a god who was given wisdom. He is a god who tore it from the fabric of creation with his own hands. The original Norse myths tell of a far different king, a paranoid, obsessed god, haunted by the foreknowledge of his own doom. Ragnarök. His entire existence was a desperate, brutal quest to gain enough knowledge, enough power to defy a fate that was already written. This is the story of that obsession, a tale of ritual self-mutilation, of a god hanging from the gallows of the cosmos, and of the agonizing price that must be paid for true knowledge. The story begins not with a throne, but with a thirst. Odin, the chief of the Gear gods, was not content. While other gods reveled in their power, Odin was consumed by a singular, knowing obsession, the prophecy of the twilight of the gods, a final, unwinnable battle that would see him devoured by the great wolf Fenrir, and the cosmos consumed by fire. He understood that power was meaningless without the knowledge to wield it, and he began a relentless quest to learn every secret, every spell, and every fate hidden within the 9 realms. He was a king, but he was also a shaman, a wanderer, and a fanatic, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for the wisdom to cheat his own death. His quest first led him down the treacherous routes of Yggdrasil, the world tree, to the well of Bruna, the well of wisdom. Guarding this sacred place was the ancient being Mimir, a giant whose knowledge was absolute, for every day he drank from the well's enchanted waters. Odin, in his guise as a simple wanderer, approached the ancient head and made his request: a single drink from the well. Mimir, whose eyes saw everything, knew who stood before him. He also knew the fundamental law of the cosmos. Knowledge is not free. It has a price. He looked at the powerful 2-eyed god before him and named his horrific toll. "I will give you a drink from my well, Odin," the great head rumbled, "if you will give me one of your eyes." For a god whose sight was his greatest weapon, this was an unthinkable price. But for Odin, no price was too high. Without hesitation, he performed the first of his great self-mutilation. He gouged out his own eye and dropped it into the depths of the well as payment. The eye would remain there for eternity, a second all-seeing orb staring up from the waters, a permanent sacrifice to the pursuit of knowledge. With the price paid, Mimir filled the great Jalar horn and offered the water to the one-eyed god. Odin drank, and in that moment, he was flooded with all the knowledge of the ages. He saw the past, the present, and the terrible, branching paths of the future. He saw the threads of fate, the secrets of the gods, and the undeniable, bloody reality of Ragnarök. The knowledge was immense, but it was not enough. The visions from Mimir's well had confirmed his fears, but they did not give him the power to change them. He now craved a different kind of knowledge, a power more ancient than the gods themselves, the primal magic of the runes. The runes were not mere letters. They were symbols of fundamental cosmic forces, keys that could shape reality, bind enemies, and grant power over life and death. But their secret was not held in any book or well. It was held by the world tree itself, a secret that could only be won through the ultimate sacrifice. To learn what is unknown to the living, one must flirt with death. To learn what is unknown to the gods, one must experience a death befitting a god. Odin returned to Yggdrasil, but this time he did not climb down its roots. He prepared himself for a horrifying ritual of shamanic suffering. He took his own great spear, Gungnir, and wounded himself deeply. Then, in an act of supreme sacrifice, he hanged himself from a great branch of the world tree. For 9 days and 9 nights, a number of potent magic in the Norse world, he was suspended between the realms, without bread to eat or water to drink, a god on the gallows, a sacrifice of himself. To himself, it was an ordeal designed to shatter the barrier between life and death, to push his consciousness to the very brink of annihilation. The 9 days were an eternity of agony. Battered by the cosmic winds that howled through Yggdrasil's branches, His body racked with pain from his spear wound, Odin hung in a state of torment. He was starving, dehydrated, and dying. His mind was flooded with terrifying visions from the realms below, and whispers from the realms above. He peered into the abyss of Niflheim, the realm of the dead, his consciousness dissolving. He was not merely waiting, he was actively seeking, staring down into the roots of the tree, his one good eye, searching for the secret. The ordeal was a test of will. The tree would only yield its knowledge to one who had proven himself worthy, to one who had willingly embraced the totality of suffering and death. On the 9th night, at the peak of his agony, at the moment when the distinction between god and corpse had all but vanished, he saw them, shimmering in the depths. The shapes of the runes appeared. But they would not come to him. They demanded one final act of will. Wheat, de, Jine, Huhum, Hufuevera. Last of his strength, Odin let out a great primal scream, a sound of pain, of effort, of pure, cosmic will. In that scream, he reached down with his spirit and seized the runes, pulling their knowledge into himself. The ordeal was over. He was cut down from the tree, not just a survivor, but a new being, reborn through pain. The Odin who returned to Asgard was not the same god who had left. He was now Odin the One-Eyed, a grim, maimed figure. But in his empty eye socket, a new sight resided. He was the master of the runes, the lord of shamanic magic, the god who had died and been reborn to understand the secrets of the cosmos. This is the brutal truth of the Alf. His wisdom was not a gift, it was a scar. His power was not inherited, it was bought with his own flesh and paid for with unimaginable agony. In the brutal world of the Norse, leadership and knowledge were not matters of birthright or gentle learning. They were the spoils of a violent, personal war against the limitations of existence itself. And the greatest king was the one who bore the deepest wounds. If the story of how a god mutilated himself for knowledge made you question the nature of power, maybe hit that subscribe button, because history is filled with kings and gods who paid for their crowns with their own blood, and their stories are always the most telling. And trust me, their chapters are the ones they never wanted you to read.